It's Thursday, October 27th, 2022. This is FRC Media News. I'm Keith Tebow. The Grove at Heritage State Park is dedicated to a departed city teen. We speak with Kim Driscoll, Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor, and a youth team from the Wautuppa Rowing Center competes in the head of the Charles Regatta. All this and more coming up. State and local officials last week gathered at Heritage State Park to dedicate the picnic grove in honor of autistic teen David Almond. It was 2 years ago Friday that the 14-year-old Almond died, the victim of starvation and neglect at the hands of his father and his girlfriend. David's tragic death resulted in an exhaustive investigation on the part of the Office of the Child Advocate, which faulted the State Department of Children and Families and the Fall River School Department for not being more attentive to Almond's case. Fall River State Representative Carol Fiola, who along with Senator Michael Roderick sponsored the resolution naming the grove after Almond, says his death has resulted in changes to how child neglect cases are handled.
His case continues to shape the way that children under DCF supervision in the courts and in the school districts are being cared for, and has resulted in numerous changes recommended after a lengthy and thorough investigation by the Office of the Child Advocate, which are being implemented and have been ongoing. We remain focused on following these improvements so that all children under the supervision of the state are safe, well cared for, and hopefully feel loved. His death inspires us all to do better and be better advocates to make sure a tragedy like this never happens again.
The idea to naming the grove after Almond was made by city resident Michael Almeida. Almeida said he did not know David, but worked with a number of children with disabilities, including his own brother.
David, I didn't know you, but it feels like I've known you your entire life. We don't have the answers why the Lord called you home so young. We wish it was just a dream. We are all wishing you would walk back into our lives, but on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020, the Lord called you home as one of his beautiful young angels. Your love and life lives on inside all of us, and we will hold on tight. It's not my place to question why, only God knows why. God needed another angel, and he saw you were in pain and suffering, so he called you home. David, I leave you with this, with a beautiful tree planted in your memory, and a bench overlooking the beautiful scenery, and boats in the water. You would love this. I hope the angels know what they have gained. Please watch over your brothers Michael, Joshua, and Grayson, and help guide them through life. They're going to need you.
The Honorable J. Spinelli, First Justice of the Fall River Juvenile Court, who oversaw Almond's case, says there's not a day that goes by that he does not think of Almond and the impact he has made in reforming the justice system that looks for cases of neglect.
And he will have an impact on our court system in the way that we work together forever. I mean, the one thing that's come from this that's really important is we have the Department of Children and Families, we have the schools, we have the probation service, we have the court system, and we now work much better together. We share information better. We're looking out for those signs that would indicate there's another problem similar to this. So, for those things, I thank David Almond.
We're less than 2 weeks from Election Day, with mail ballots being returned and early voting continuing at Government Center. Fall River voters will take part in 2 elections, the state election and a special city election, asking residents whether the city should become members of the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, or the MBTA. On that second matter, the City Council this week took a public vote to support the MBTA referendum as part of the South Coast Rail project. The Council voted 8-1 to pass a resolution that recommends city voters support the referendum. The resolution was proposed by City Councilor Brad Kilby, who says it is appropriate for the council to lend support to projects that will benefit the city.
This is a quality of life issue. This issue has been talked about for over 30 years. Governor Weld came down and gave a guarantee that it was going to happen in like 5 to 10 years, if everyone recalls. So there's a large state investment. Our waterfront, our culture, it's long overdue. We really need the enhancement of transportation. Transportation has been the key for so many things for thousands of years. I don't want to get too deep in history, but all roads lead to Rome. The Intercontinental Railroad, it just spirits more positive things in your community.
City Councilor Michelle Dion cast a lone no vote, saying it's inappropriate for the council to try to influence an issue before voters head to the polls.
I don't think this council is in the business of telling people how to vote or trying to sway votes. When you go in a voting booth, it's supposed to be a private matter, and I don't think that we have the right to tell people how they should vote. It has nothing to do with what side I'm on, because I have not voiced my opinion to anyone of what side I'm on. I don't think I have the right to try to tell the voters how to vote, whether it be in the affirmative or the negative.
We continue bringing you a look at some of the candidates you can expect to see on the election ballot to give you some help in making voting decisions. For the second week in a row, we begin with heading to the top of the election ballot. Last week, we spoke with Republican nominee for governor Jeff Deal. This week, we speak with the Democratic ticket. We were unable to be joined by Democratic gubernatorial nominee Attorney General Maura Healey, but we did get to speak to her running mate for lieutenant governor, Salem Mayor Kim Driscoll. Here are excerpts of our conversation. I did not have the opportunity, unfortunately, to speak to you for the primary season, and a lot of people in Fall River may not know who Kim Driscoll is. So give us a brief overview of who Kim Driscoll is.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to be with you. I'm the mayor of Salem. I've been fortunate to be the mayor of Salem for the last 16 years. Really excited about the opportunity to serve as your next lieutenant governor. As mayor, I always feel like there's no hiding. You get to make decisions every day for people you know and care about. And it makes you a better listener. It tends to make you more accountable. And I think it brings a sense of urgency to solving some of our biggest challenges. There's no doubt that mayors have been on the front lines, whether it was COVID response and recovery, the housing challenges we have, working on our transportation woes and in public schools. I feel like that experience as mayor is one that can be really important to work with our next governor, partner on solving the issues that impact people in their daily lives. There's no doubt that local government plays an important role in the lives of people who live in Massachusetts. And I hope to not only make sure I bring my personal view as a mayor to the State House, but frankly, representative of our communities and championing the work that happens at the local level. We can't have a strong Commonwealth without thriving communities, and we can't have thriving communities without a strong state partner. So looking forward to being in a position to help influence what happens on the ground in so many of our cities and towns. And like Fall River, Salem is a gateway city, share similar challenges and frankly, similar opportunities, both historic seaports and opportunities to grow and flourish as we move forward.
Yeah, you actually led me into my next question. Being a mayor of a gateway city, a lot of times here in Fall River, and I don't know if it's the case up in Salem, a lot of people will sort of challenge the politics of Boston to say, well, they don't care about us here on the South Coast or in Fall River. They only care about Boston. As lieutenant governor, working in conjunction with a potential governor, Maura Healey, how do you view the relationship between Beacon Hill and the governor and lieutenant governor with gateway cities like Fall River and Salem, but even more specifically, maybe those cities here in the South Coast?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. I think there are such opportunities on the South Coast. We think about, the clean energy future that we're all working for. Both the South Coast, Fall River and New Bedford, and Salem stand to play a large role in that. And that's exciting because oftentimes our gateway cities can be forgotten or feel like they're neglected, whether it's on the South Coast, out in Central or Western Mass. I think if you've been a city leader, you really recognize the importance of having a strong connection to Boston. You can't be on your own trying to bring economic prosperity to your community. We need to have a strategic ally in the State House. That's certainly a role I hope to take on in partnership with Maura Healey. I think both of us understand growing inaffordability in Massachusetts, whether that's due to the high cost of housing, the childcare gaps, just the fact that inflation is causing everything to increase in price. We're going to have to work in a way to ensure that our gateway cities that oftentimes have our most diverse community members, educate 25% of our public education, our public students in public education, who were places that were once great cities with prominence and economic leaders in the regions. We want to unlock the potential in those gateway cities. And I think there's a lot of potential in the South Coast, in places like Fall River, if we're working in partnership, having an aligned vision, and then working to go after it together, both at the local level with local leaders, legislative leaders representing those regions and areas, and obviously coming from the State House, the perspective of a mayor and as lieutenant governor, an attorney general as governor, who wants to make sure our communities have a real ally in the State House.
You know, in many ways, you have some big shoes to fill. Many of our local leaders here, Mayor Coogan, the legislative delegation, has really heaped praise upon current Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito and her work on focusing on reaching out to the cities and towns, keeping lines of communication open. What do you need? Is that something you hope to continue on in your role as Lieutenant Governor, being that liaison between cities and towns and the executive branch?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would echo their sentiments as well. I know Mayor Coogan, I think many local leaders feel like the Baker Polito administration has been strong partners in the work. So we're not starting from a place where there isn't a foundation that's already been made. Now it's about, I think accelerating the pace of what we're doing. And, as someone who's been a mayor, I know what it's like to be in City Hall, to be facing a challenge and wanting to make sure that they see the state as a strategic ally in the work ahead. Looking forward to leaning in both with Mayor Coogan, with Mayor Mitchell in New Bedford, and other local leaders to ensure that we're thinking about the investments we're making in a way that's going to lead to longer term economic prosperity in our communities. There's no other way to approach Massachusetts moving forward than ensuring that we are a place that works for and welcomes all, no matter what your zip code is or your background. That's the true value and compass, I think, for Massachusetts and certainly for this hoped for administration.
It appears that on a lot of people's minds is the economy, making ends meet. That was a big topic of discussion in the two gubernatorial debates that were recently held with your running mate and former state representative Jeff Deal. How does the HealyDriscoll team look at trying to help people in our communities, not only in the South Coast but across the Commonwealth, deal with high inflation and potentially helping them make ends meet in a number of issues, housing and what have you?
Yeah, there's no doubt that growing inaffordability is one of the biggest issues that we hear about throughout the Commonwealth. And a lot of that is due to the high housing costs here. There isn't enough housing. The housing we have is very expensive and oftentimes doesn't meet community needs. We hope to be in a position to help with creating additional housing units within the Commonwealth, and that really need to make sure a whole heck of a lot of those are more affordable, both to people who are here now, and we know the young adults and older adults who want to age in place. The other key areas when we think about affordability are also the childcare. The childcare gaps are real. I was a mom of 3 under the age of 5 years old at one time, and my husband and I know what it feels like to not only be running around trying to find high quality childcare, but the ability to afford it. It's high past the time that we have more affordable childcare options for community members, particularly folks living in gateway cities. We hope to lean into that work. We've got impressive policies based on the Common Start that we hope a better platform for municipalities to help with reducing costs for working families. I think overall, those workforce initiatives, we released a policy on how we hope to support young adults who may not have gone through either a college degree program or a workforce training program to grow their potential income through what we call Mass Reconnects, utilizing our community colleges, our public higher ed institutions to unlock the potential of young adults who want to pursue different careers, who want to have other options, but are finding that they've been barriers for whatever reason, and put us in a position to, to see a brighter future. And lastly, I'll just talk about transportation, because you really can't have a functioning economic development within a Commonwealth without a strong public transit system. And we're excited about the growth of South Coast Rail. We know that's underway. We want to be able to serve people and make sure they can get access to school, to work, to job opportunities beyond just where they might live. And so that means investing in public transportation, making sure it's not only safe, but reliable and affordable is going to be a key part of the work ahead.
I just want to ask you quickly about a couple of the ballot questions on the election this year. Question number one will ask for voters to approve a constitutional amendment which will impose a 4% additional tax on those making $1 million or more a year. Will you be planning to vote yes or no on that?
Yes, definitely supportive. I know that we need a sustainable revenue stream to help assist with transportation infrastructure cost, with our education needs as we go forward. And this is something that we think is very manageable from the perspective of a small percentage of people impacted for resources and dollars that can provide a really large gain.
And question number 4, dealing with the expansion of the availability of driver's licenses. Of course, the legislature did pass that law. There's a group looking to repeal it. How do you view that question?
Yeah, absolutely think we should keep the law in place. 17 other states have a very similar law that will enable, public safety to be, first and foremost, front and center, I should say, on the road. If folks are going to be driving, we want them to be licensed and insured. We think this makes sense from a public safety perspective, and certainly as a mayor of a gateway city, this is an important issue.
Yeah. I want to be respectful of your time. A couple of other quick questions before we wrap up. As we're recording this, it's about 2.5 weeks or so until November 8th. What do you vision to be the tact of Maura Healey and Kim Driscoll over the next 2.5 weeks in terms of continuing to send the message out to those in the Commonwealth?
Yeah, I mean, we're working really hard. We want to make sure residents know that we want to earn their vote. We know this is an important election, and there are important decisions yet to bear. We are definitely headed to some choppy waters. I think whoever is elected in January is not going to have much of a honeymoon. You're going to own. We hope to be in a position to work on matters, and whoever is in is going to own the housing crisis, is going to own the childcare gaps, is going to have to work on the transportation woes, is going to need to address what's happening in our schools. The post-COVID recovery has not met all of our students. We have a lot of work to do in those spaces, and we already talked about the childcare gaps. That is work we are interested in doing. There couldn't be more of a clear choice in this election. Jeff Deal and his running mate really want to turn Massachusetts backward. They want to divide people who are here. They are against women's reproductive freedoms. They have shown that their vision and version of Massachusetts is not aligned with the values that I think people hold near and dear. So we're working hard to make sure we're communicating with voters, moving around the state to as many corners of the Commonwealth as possible, talking about the differences in this race, asking people for their vote, and really excited about the opportunity to roll up our sleeves and get to work on these challenges.
Question 3 on the ballot looks to increase the number of alcohol licenses a retail establishment can own. Currently, the limit is 9 licenses. If passed, the number will rise to 18 beer and wine licenses, with up to 7 of those being full alcohol licenses. Rob Mellion, who represents the Massachusetts Package Store Association, says passage of the referendum will allow for more convenience for consumers while bringing fairness for small liquor store owners and large retail establishments.
This is a ballot question that has been put forward by local retailers of beer, wine, and spirits all across the state, including MassPac members who are down here in the greater Fall River area. So this was put forward by them as a compromise to the food store chains and to the chain store box stores that sell alcohol. This is a compromise to them in getting to 18 because many of them want beer and wine licenses. So this is a compromise at the expense of local retailers, in return hoping to get some stability in the marketplace for the next few years because there has been a lot of instability.
Mr. Mellion says safety measures will accompany the increase in the number of licenses. There are provisions in the referendum to guard against the unlawful sale of alcohol to minors.
One of them is a ban on self-checkout. There is no good reason to have self-checkout of alcohol in Massachusetts or anywhere else for that matter. Self-checkout cannot prevent an illegal sale to a minor. Self-checkout cannot prevent an illegal sale to somebody who's intoxicated. Self-checkout cannot prevent second-party sales where the individual gaining alcohol was of age with the intent of giving it to somebody who was not of age. You can't do that with self-checkout. You can't self-checkout cigarettes. You can't self-checkout medications. You shouldn't be able to self-checkout alcohol. This fixes that.
Along with ending self-checkout, the structure of fines for those caught selling alcohol to minors is being changed to make it a bigger deterrent for retailers. Another safeguard in the referendum will now make out-of-state IDs a valid form of identification when selling alcohol.
Massachusetts is the only state in the United States that does not allow a retailer, whether it is a hospitality retailer, a restaurant, or a liquor store to be able to reasonably rely on an out-of-state ID. So theoretically, if somebody comes from Tiverton and purchases alcohol in Fall River, the store accepts that ID at their risk because they can't reasonably rely on it. We're the only state that does not allow a retailer to reasonably rely on a valid out-of-state ID. This ballot question cures that. You can buy cannabis in Massachusetts with any government issue ID, but you can't buy alcohol with a Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut ID.
You can watch our entire interview with Mayor Kim Driscoll and other candidates and supporters and opponents of the ballot questions by visiting our special Election 2022 webpage on our website, frmedia.org. We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Registered nurse. The Fall River Kidney Center, located at 48 Weaver Street, is looking for a full-time registered nurse to oversee a group of patients with the support of patient care technicians to conduct patient observations, measuring stats, and machine setup. Job number 176-28489. Reach Truck Forklift Operator. Ice Cube Cold Storage, located at 451 Current Road, is looking for a full-time reach truck forklift operator to move and stack materials, load and unload trucks, and receive and process shipments. Job number 176-18768. Paraprofessional. Laterno Elementary School, located at 323 Anthony Street, is seeking a full-time paraprofessional to work with children individually or in small groups by providing basic instruction on reading, writing, math, and other education-related activities as assigned by teachers' directions. Job number 176-17367. Pharmacist. Walgreens, located at 369 Plymouth Avenue, is looking for a full-time pharmacist. For more information, call 508-730-2902. South Coast Health System, located at 363 Highland Avenue, has an immediate need for the following full and part-time positions. Speech pathologist, job number 175-94221. Occupational therapist, job number 175-94191. For more information about these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
A youth rowing crew from the Wautuppa Rowing Center in Fall River had an experience of a lifetime last week, competing in one of the world's largest regatta, the Head of the Charles in Boston. The women's youth team of 4 rowers and a coxswain is the center's first ever entry in the world-famous event. Team coach Sarah Fisk says the team of 4 15-year-olds and 1 16-year-old represented themselves and the rowing center well.
So many competitors. They had 90 boats in their event. And let me tell you guys, there were even college kids who were still under the age category in their event. There were 18-year-olds, everything like that, and they held their own. They looked so good coming through the bridge, and we're just so proud that they made it down the course, rowing beautifully, and it's foreshadowing awesome things to come as well. So this is our inaugural racing team and crew and Head of the Charles event, and it's just so exciting.
Team members found the Head of the Charles experience rewarding.
When we started, it was we went really fast. We had a high rate, but then we kind of fizzled out, and then we were less for the whole way back, but we had more power to it. And at the beginning, when we were going so fast, I could see all of the other boats that hadn't gone yet, and there was so many, and it kind of made me nervous. But once we kept going, there was less boats behind us, so I could focus more on trying to get through than oh my god, there's so many boats coming at me. So it got easier as I went on.
Going through the finish line, I think, was one of the best parts. It's just that feeling of relief that you made it, not even caring what place you did. You raced in the head of the trolls, and that's the greatest accomplishment. And going through the Elliott Bridge was one of the best parts, hearing all the team cheering for us and just knowing that there was people there for us. It was really fun.
This experience was pretty amazing. I mean, it was the first boat we have for the head of Charles, so it was pretty fun. I mean, it was stressful, obviously, but even though we finished last, I think it was a good experience.
There's a new 20-mile hiking trail open within the southeastern Massachusetts Bioreserve that falls within parts of Fall River and Freetown. Development of the new trail was made possible by a Mass Trails grant from the state. City Forester Michael Labossiere says the new trail fits within the natural layout of the bioreserve.
We didn't want to create new trails because it's a bioreserve. We're trying to protect biodiversity. We don't need to fragment any more than already exists. We want to protect habitat and biodiversity. We want to protect wetlands. We want to, as much as possible, stay on our bioreserve partner lands. We wanted to connect existing trails and fire lanes. They're already there. We don't have to rebuild those. We wanted to avoid utility lines and houses. We wanted to create a distinct identity and put reliable signages in place. This is about 16,000 acres, and to get lost out here is not as simple as calling 911. So the idea of more reliable, markers and being able to invite people out here and reliably be able to have a safe experience.
We will wrap up this edition of FRC Media News right after this.
Hi, welcome to Hot Dogs and Cool Cats. Today we have Leo. Leo here is a 5-year-old. He's a mix. We have him as a Beagle mix. Personally, I think he might have some kind of terrier in him or something like that. He is still a very energetic dude. I wouldn't even say he likes to play with toys so much. He just likes to be around with people, likes going anywhere with people, likes his walks, that sort of thing. He is good with other dogs, very much likes them. Cats, it depends on the cat. Sometimes he likes them, sometimes they're not a cut of his jib. We would prefer it that he go to a home with older kids, like teenagers, that sort of thing. He's only 28 pounds, so he is below the threshold for a lot of, apartments, that sort of thing. Not too big, this guy. So if you'd like to meet Leo, you can come down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter. Today we have Arnold. Arnold's here. He's a 9-year-old. He's a little bit older. He is normally a little bit longer hair, but you can see he's a little trimmed down right now. When he came to us, he didn't come to us as a stray, believe it or not. He's got a very good disposition, so I'm sure he did have a previous home. But he just wandered off, I guess. It's probably not the best idea to give him put him with dogs. We haven't dog tested him yet, but I've been doing this long enough that I can tell you he's going to be kind of grumpy with the dogs, unless they are pretty old themselves and they just kind of lounge about, that sort of thing. But he would do well with kids, I think. He's very calm in his older age and just with his disposition. But if you'd like to come and meet Arnold, you can come down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
That's all for this edition of FRC Media News. Please visit our website at frmedia.org for all the latest news and local information. FRC Media News airs Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great Halloween. We'll see you next Thursday.